change in her eating behavior and her movements, then that tells me we maybe just need to take a few steps back in those movements and reinforce a little bit more in those areas. But from here, I can work on restraints, and you're working on so many different things. So rather than it being a session where I'm working on just touching her left leg, you're getting all of those tail, left leg, right leg, different kinds of movements in, and you're watching her behavior to see if there's any changes, and you're adding reinforcement for all of those cues and all of those behaviors. So there's lots happening in the session, but rather than just doing it as a formal training session, for me, this is sometimes preferred way of doing it. Nice. Even her walk there was really soft, the way she left the session.
Yeah, she's off eating soft food. I asked to get some, and she was like, I see what's happening over there, I'm going for it. So good time for us to take a break. Good time for me to take a break, I think. All right.
Yeah.
Adding you guys back in.
How did you feel?
Yeah. Yep. I'm totally with you, Angelica. It's like, all right, we're done. We just need to do, now we just need to do the actual work of like doing the training, but now we have the foundation that I think is exactly what we needed to add in. Because I'm thinking,
looking for your touch as well, like she was actually, are you going to touch more or not, you know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and that's really key. Is you're starting to see there's always contingencies in play. It's not, a lot of people say, is the dog not just distracted by food? But you can actually see there's learning going on, there's changes in behavior, and so lots of it's happening. But from a whole body just stayed calm. Even how she walked away, she trotted with her head soft, head low. She was able to turn her head side to side with a just smooth, rather than just the whole body turning really fast and jerky motions. So I think it seemed excellent. Like you can add in, have something in your hand when you're touching her, so that she just gets different sensations touching her. Essentially, it's the same thing as changing how you're touching. You start having a glove on or different things in your hand, and then introducing those objects. But I think building it on layers of what you've just done.
Yeah, and I'm thinking continuing further with the tactile before going for any more any further between the treats, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
to have a really high, just to make sure that we really maintain this relaxed body motion. I'm envisioning that eventually we'll build in more stillness, but a very different type of stillness from what she already has in her repertoire from this.
Yeah, and I think what you'll find is you won't need to, rather than you trying to build it in, you'll start finding as you're doing this, you'll start seeing her food will run out, but she's standing there and she's just sniffing with relaxed body, looking for the next piece, but almost her neck is just side to side movements. And at that moment, you place more food and you're already reinforcing duration without trying to build. The moment you try and start counting or building, you're just going to stiffen up and she's going, where's the next treat? So almost you're building duration through this movement and stillness, and you'll see this progress and you'll build up a different kind of duration and stillness and calmness, as opposed to the more traditional, in a training session setup way.
Yeah, and I also envision that I will be able to introduce, if needed, okay, now we need a chin rest. Well, building that into this will also be a very different type of behavior in the chin rest. So she already has all the foundations of all those targets, but integrating them into this, because here I always have a foundation to go back to, and we can always back up to sniff and eat.
Yeah. But it also looked like you had a super great to build a break behavior that was real. I'm minding my own business here, that kind of thing looked great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Angelica, because I think sometimes people ask things like that, like the question we were discussing earlier about building in breaks. I think there's so much that it's not just about the break, it's about how you arrange the environment for everything else that leads into all of those factors. So I think sometimes stripping it back to just going back to the foundations that we did, and then as you build from there, you can see all of these things, kind of the way you do the sessions create the environment for all the other things going on. So sometimes I think rather than going, I just need to build this piece here, we just need to take some of the other pieces and reshuffle them and put them back together again, and suddenly things fall into place, I think.
Yep. I think everybody's like, all right, we're done.
No, it also looks nice when you also waited for her, when we had longer breaks in between that also looked so different from what we have seen from her earlier. So
yeah, and I liked that I could put my I could, in this session, I could get to where I could do both. She's either continually sniffing or going back to sniffing, and I could go, you sniff tactile, or you go back to sniff tactile before food. I didn't even have to go for, you go back to sniffing, food comes instantly. I could insert the tactile before the sniffing. And I could also integrate my the sound of the treats. I don't know how much you heard that on the microphone, but the treats are making noise when I grab them with my fingers. And that's typically if I have a box between next to me, but right now I also had a little box in my treat bag, so there is noise from me refilling the treats in my hand. And I don't think she, maybe once that she did a head up or a movement up on that noise. Most of the times I could do that while she's sniffing, my hand is touching, noise, she's still sniffing, my hand goes back to tactile, she's still sniffing, now the treat comes. So it was a pretty long chain that was built, where both my hands and the tactile and the noise were built into that, and my hand movements. It's like I got a lot of things that I wanted, and on top of that sniffing behavior.
Also, you placing the treats in front of her on the floor, that part looked also so good concerning the attention. She showed it also.
Yeah, your skill level, you could see your decision making and your skill level paid off a lot, because in certain places, when there was a moment where she turned away and you just kind of stopped for a second, a lot of people would have maybe just put the food down as her head came up, but then they would have reinforced a loop that we don't want. So it was really good to see, like, that helped help it flow even more, I think. So that was really good. And I think it'll be interesting to see that when you watch that session again, you'll see that we made a change early on when at the beginning, her body was a bit more stiff, and then just asking to feed differently. So focusing on putting more down as opposed to doing, here's a treat, a head comes up, then here's the next one. Suddenly things changed a lot within the first couple, like the first minute or so, I think. So that'll be really interesting when you watch back, just to see what you noticed there.
Yeah.